All right, so first of all, you have your test coming up on Ruth, which I'm gonna make it be due after the break. So Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday. Okay. Um, any problems with that? I know it's Passover. Um, I think you can write a test on Passover, right? Okay. Great. So, all right, perfect. So I'm going to give you 4 questions to choose from at the end of class today. So can someone remind me, someone reliable, someone who'll stay till the end? Put your hand up if you can remind me to do this. Somebody? Thank you, Morales. Okay, I might go a little over today, just so I can finish, Ruth. If you have to go, you have to go. But stay if you can. I won't go over too much, but I might, right? I just want to be able to take my time because this is the climax, right? We can't miss this climax. And this is the first time finally Boaz is, in the center. So I don't want to miss this. This is a really important moment. So, okay, great. So let's get started. I'm going to start with your questions as usual. We can try and answer them a little bit. So, interesting point by Goldstein. Goldstein is lamenting that the whole vocabulary that Boaz is using when he's trying to talk about Ruth, right? So actually, let me explain a little bit what's going on in that scene, right? As soon as Boaz leaves, right, Ruth, he goes off during the day to the city gate. Some people are wondering why the city gate. City gate is where all of the judicial stuff was taking place. It's like going to the courthouse, right? So so he's there, right? And then there's this unnamed relative, and we'll talk about that. A lot of you pointed it out. Why is he unnamed? Everybody else has a name. And so here there's a kind of strange transaction going on, and you have to know a little bit the culture to know what's actually going on. First of all, let me be clear. Boaz has neither the duty to marry Ruth nor the duty to redeem the land, right? According to Jewish law, the duty to marry the widow is for the brother of the husband, right? Boaz is not the brother. Second, redeeming of the land. This is something that the nearest relative can do. So in other words, if remember this law, right? If you were poor, too poor to survive, you sell your land, you get the money and you live off of the money. But because these lands were tribal lands, they wanted to keep it within the tribe. So a relative could come and buy the land again from whoever bought it, maybe someone from another tribe, right? Acquire the land again so it would stay within the tribe. So that's called redeeming the land, right? So Boaz is saying, I'm not the nearest relative. Let me find the guy who's the nearest relative. Now, the nearest relative is the only duty they have is to buy the land. Notice that Boaz adds a clause. Anybody notice this? What's the other clause that this guy all of a sudden finds himself having to do in addition to buying the land for Naomi? Anybody? Yes, Granny, go ahead.
He would have to marry Ruth also.
Right, and this is completely unorthodox. This is out of the blue. I mean, this is like, what? What does this have to do with anything, right? So this is unusual, right? He's kind of like, you can sense that he's playing a certain game, right? Everybody knows what he's doing, basically, and he's trying to stretch the law, trying to, squeeze in his agenda. He's doing something very unorthodox. He's really basically kind of um, tweaking the law, stretching it, arranging it so that he can end up with his purpose. And it's obvious to everybody that he's doing that he has to do that to go through the legal proceeding, right? For this very unorthodox marriage he's about to commit, right? So this thing of acquiring Ruth, that's completely, so I just wanted you to notice, right? The way that he's stretching things in order to be able to accomplish, right, Ruth's desire, right? He cannot work within the system as it is. He has to stretch it and broaden it. We'll talk about that, right? Now the sandal ritual is interesting because you have this ritual described earlier in the Hebrew Bible in Jewish law, and this is normally you have this when I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a widow and the brother-in-law doesn't want to marry her. And so she, okay,
No,
how does
it's
it go? Help me. Go ahead.
opposite. It's the opposite. If the wife does not want to marry the
Ah,
brother,
okay,
then
go on,
oh, sorry.
continue.
If the wife does not want to marry the brother-in-law, then the wife does something called yibum, and yibum is this ritual whereby she takes the shoe of the brother-in-law, she spits into it, and says, "This is what happens to the man who does not want to continue his brother's lineage." And now she is free to go and to marry whoever it is she wants.
Perfect, thank you. Alim had an interesting interpretation of that ritual. I wanted to share this. Go ahead, Alim. I like that, what you were saying in your essay, in your paper.
So, I guess back then the streets weren't as clean. So when someone takes off their shoes, they're exposing their feet. It's a very sensitive part of their body to like serpents or whatever may be in the floor, like sharp rocks. So I guess it's saying like someone who doesn't like protect other people or like carries out their like familial obligation doesn't deserve protection of their shoes in return. So
Right.
yeah.
So just to be clear, Kestenbaum, she takes off her shoe or she takes off his shoe? I forgot.
She takes off his shoe.
Okay, got it. Yes, yes, yes. So I kind of liked, right, how the way Alim was interpreting it. I know that the shoe thing is in the Middle East, right? It's a kind of shaming, right? I don't know if you remember when George Bush visited, what was it, Iraq? Nobody knows this story that someone threw a shoe
I
at
can throw the shoes at him during the press conference.
Yeah, someone threw a shoe at him. So you're getting right this is in the Middle East, taking off your shoe and shoving it in someone's face is kind of like, like spitting in their face or like shame on you, right? So there's so notice how this ritual is kind of tweaked here. It's not the same thing, but it's still there's still a kind of um, it's kind of a very diluted form of that ancient ritual. Since man, I'm forgetting everything. I'm tired. What happens to the shoe in our story? Somebody too tired to remember what happened to the shoe in our story. Did he take off his shoe?
Yeah, I
Somebody
think
else?
he took off his own shoe in our story.
Sorry, say that again, Brennick.
I think he took off his own shoe.
Okay, got it, right? So this is kind of a diluted version, but you're kind of seeing, right, a little bit more what this transaction that Boaz is doing, why he has to go to the city gate. He's trying to make it legal, basically. He's trying to make something illegal legal. This is the problem, right? He's not supposed to be marrying Ruth. There is no way out, right? So he's trying to really stretch the law, arrange things so that he can make this happen. But we are all, in a way, everybody is aware of how unorthodox, all right, his proceeding is. Okay, but I don't want to stay too long. As you realize, I haven't spent too much time thinking about the shoes, and I don't want to spend too long on this, but I just wanted to make it clear so you know what's going on in the story. Okay. Now, so Goldstein, right, is saying when he's talking about Ruth in the context of this transaction at the city gate, he says the word used is I have acquired, to acquire, like the same verb is used to acquire the land. So Ruth clearly looks like a complete object, right? So Goldstein is pointing out that paf, we're back in the father's house, right? But Goldstein, I want you to look at chapter 4, verse 13. Can you go there? Tell me what's going on there. Read it to us.
I did see that and I can read it. It still lessens my question, but and so Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife and he came to her.
Okay, notice, okay, so he takes you're right, this is still taking, right? It's not the same verb, but it's still kind of like, but then what's interesting is that the text is not happy just with Boaz marries Ruth. It adds, and she became his wife. So you see this addition? We don't need it. It would be enough to just say Boaz married Ruth and cohabited with her. So why does the text add, and she became his wife, do you think, Goldstein?
To tell us that even when a man takes the woman and purchases her, he can still be nice to her and treat her like a wife.
Almost. Notice that you have, if you look just at the syntax, Boaz, subject, marries Ruth, object, and she, subject, becomes his wife, right? So are you seeing a little bit what the text is trying perhaps to tell us here through this juxtaposition, this extra clause? Are you seeing what? So it's more than just being nice to her, right? There's something on the part of Ruth going on here. What do you think is happening? Or anyone who wants to help out? Pierre-Antoine, go ahead. Save Goldstein from.
I don't know if this is correct, but I remember we were talking about how like the sacred marriage and everything and how it uplifts like one another, and like I forgot what verse it was, but in one of like I think chapter 2 or 3 where Boaz was kind of shocked that Ruth wanted him to marry her. I think it kind of reconciles that, like they became one and that they could have like actually have like a decent marriage that kind of uplifted them both.
So you're on track. There's a reciprocity here, right?
Yeah,
Boaz
yeah.
marries Ruth, she becomes his wife. There's a mirror, there's a reflection, a reciprocity. What's going on? What's the text trying to say? Goldstein, you want to try again?
But why is it always that the man has to take the wife first? Like, I think that it would
Okay.
fit in with what you had said in your classes, that Boaz redeeming and like giving her this power. Now she got like the power to be his wife. Like they were kind of redeeming each other. But still, why does it always have to use words like kanisi and I bought and I purchased and I took her? I can't blame all the men for have read it as that all the years. That's what it's saying.
Yes, Goldstein, we cannot dismantle patriarchy, all of it at once. But there's a crack here. Is anyone seeing the crack? Am I the only one seeing this crack? There's a crack. There is certainly there. The edifice of patriarchy is solid, but there's a crack being drawn by this added clause, and she became his wife. Nobody, you're so close. You guys are so close. Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
Okay, maybe okay, because like the word became, I feel like it's like you're stepping into like a role, like you're fulfilling something. Like that's like the only thing I could come to like terms with, because like I don't know what you're seeing.
I mean, look at how it is in the beginning. Boaz takes Ruth. That's the word for marriage. Here is to take.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he takes Ruth, and now she should be a complete object, passive object, taken. And then the text add, and she
Oh,
became his wife. Are you seeing?
I think so, but I'm gonna have to let it marinate in my head because I don't want to just like, rapid fire.
Goldstein.
Oh, sorry, my hand was still up from before.
Oh, okay. No one is seeing this? Alim, save us.
I don't really know if I can save you. This might make it worse, actually. But I noticed that like the first clause is in the active voice, and then the second clause is in the passive
You're
voice.
not helping, but good point.
Yeah, I can see like how they're like parallels to each other, but like still not exactly. They're not really parallels to me.
Actually, it's not passive. She goes to help me out, Hebraic ones.
I think it is passive because it says Vatihi lo isha. Vatihi is like and she was.
Where am I? I have. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to read. Okay. No, I have Yavo. Oh, here it is. Yes, et Ruth vatehi lo leisha. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. All right.
But Yavo is talking about Boaz, and then it goes back to the active language. So it's like active,
Got
passive.
it. Okay, Alim, you're right. This is a problem. You're making things worse. You're not helping. You're right. There's an active, passive. Aye, but there's one tiny thing. Let's be charitable. Wagler.
I feel like the use of the word "she became" kind of implies that there was a choice involved.
Thank you. Finally. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, but you're right. It's a crack only, right? This is not a big, right? Goldstein is very demanding to our text here, but this is a crack, right? I'm seeing it like you, Wagler, right? There is a kind of agency here, right? He takes her, and she also acknowledges, right? There is an element of agency here, but you're right. It could be better. Remember, we are still in the context of patriarchy, even though this is the mother's house. The dominating house is still the father's house, right? So we can't be too demanding at this point. Okay, great. Continuing, just a few more questions before I get into. I'm wondering this too, by the way. This is at the end, right? The child is born, and they say a child is born to Naomi. And I've always wondered, like, why is it that Naomi is the only one gets, the credit here? Anybody? You all ask this question. Most of you ask this question, right? And it's a question I have too. What's the text trying to tell us by saying that the child was born, or how does it put it? They took the child and she became its, it says foster mother. I know that's not the word. Somebody in Hebrew, what is it? What does it say? Foster mother?
No, it says Yulad ben Lenami. A son was born to Naomi.
Wow, okay. A son was born to Naomi. This is incredible, right? Ruth is completely erased from the narrative. What's going on? A lot of people have noticed this, by the way, right? That she's kind of erased from the narrative, and Naomi kind of takes over, right? Maybe it's a Hebrew thing. Maybe we're really pushing back in the father's house where we're making things again all Jewish, right? Let's push out this foreigner. Okay, you'd give the baby, now go away. Let's give it, put it in the rightful mother, right? The Jewish, maybe, right? But what else could be happening? The text is too sympathetic to Ruth, I think, to be aiming for that interpretation to be the right one, I feel. Anybody know? I'm just curious. This is not too important, but I'm just curious if anyone figured this out, because I haven't. Okay, you're like me. Goldstein and Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
This is not like a full explanation, but it might have to do with the fact that Naomi was the one that was more proactive in the beginning, and she helped Ruth along and told her what to do, and was the one that really came up with the whole plan of redeeming. So it's like she's getting the credit for having redeemed the land and continuing her line of descendants.
Okay, yes, she is the kind of a very active agent, right? She's the one who manipulates everything. She's pulled all the strings, right? She pushes Ruth into Boaz's arms and so forth. So in a way, right, since she's the main character in a way, right? Everybody's her pawn. She's able to get, okay, perhaps, yes. Pierre-Antoine, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar along the lines of what Goldstein said. Like, but I was thinking more of like it's kind of replacing what happened in the beginning, in a sense. Not like the people knew, like, I mean, well, they did know she lost like her husband and children, whatever. But like to say like, oh, like she finally has like that heir to like the family name, like it's continued. Like I think it's the law of right where it's like continuing her husband's path, because Ruth and Naomi are family now. Like they even admit like your daughter-in-law who loves you and so on and so forth. Like they acknowledge Ruth, but like it's more so like because Naomi lost like all these like her sons, like she finally has like that son to continue her line.
Okay, yeah, like you said, right, there's a very dark moment in the beginning, and now this is kind of the overturning of that darkness, right? So she lost all her sons, right? And now she's given a son, kind of like a way to repair, right? This is kind of a reparative healing moment, right? She who has lost all her sons, all the males in her family, husband, sons, she's given this male child, right? Okay, I like that. That works. Okay, nice, nice. Okay, moving on a little faster. Yes, interesting observation by Wagler. The expression, God gave her conception. This is unusual. You're right, Wagler, right? Normally, the expression that is used is that God opens the womb. That's it. And the woman naturally conceives, right? Here it's God giving her conception. Why this detail? Anybody know? It's interesting detail. Very rare. Not used often in the Bible. Why is God here the agent of conception? Which normally is not. He just opens the womb, activates the womb, right? And then the woman by herself is able to give. Alim, go ahead.
I feel like this is a much more like intimate type of like description, and it really like matches like the theme that we've been looking at, like a more like, I guess, like seductive, more intimate type of interpretation. And I think that like Ruth really like breaks through to that type of level where like the rest of the Bible like glosses over it. So to say that God facilitates this conception, right, is to be more intimate and like, I guess, like fit this theme more.
Okay, yeah, interesting, right? In a way, it's like Ruth is breaking some glass ceiling, right? All the women, they just have the womb open. God here is actively, personally involved, right, in the conception. So it's as though there's something which, in a way, is how shall I put it? There's something in Ruth which makes her stand out, perhaps from all of the other matriarchs, right? And so that God would be that closely involved. So this is interesting, right? I like that. Granik, what do you want to add?
Yeah, just building on that, I think Ruth specifically like uses her femininity as a way of like expressing God's will, whereas maybe the other matriarchs didn't. I'm not sure, but she, like, I guess Ruth is like the epitome of that. So it kind of talks about her, like her giving birth, which is the result of that expression of femininity, as you know, as coming directly from God.
Okay, excellent, right? I like that. We'll go back to that idea. I'm going to come back to it a little later. But it's well done, Wagler, noticing that, right? Yeah, and then we talked about, okay, so I'm going to skip the rest of you who also had interesting comments because I want to get into the text. So, okay, today I'm going to comment simply the verse, all that you do, all that, sorry, I will do for you, right? This is Boaz's response, all that you ask, right? Okay. So we talked a little bit about this last time, right? The way that Ruth is able to awaken Boaz to his higher self, right? Up until now, he was doing his duty. He was nice. He was, dutiful. After this scene, right, at the threshing floor, he rises to his divine calling, right? Remember, and I argued this from the expression of right, spread your wing. Remember, we talked about this. So in 3:19, you have the Boaz talking about God's wings, right? And then Ruth throws it back at him, right? This is 2:12, I believe, right? God's wings. And then in our scene, right, Ruth throws it back at him at 3:9. I don't know, I'm tired today, guys. So I'm like missing a few details where she says, spread your wing, right? Spread your wings. So remember we talked about this, right? She in a way is awakening in him kind of the ability to become the channel for God's protection, right? Instead of just saying, God, may God protect you, she's saying, you be that protector, right? Channel this protection, rise to that expression of the divine for me, right? Become the embodiment of the divine to me, right? So this is much higher calling. This is the calling to really basically embody God's love, right? Embody God's protection, right? Which is much higher than what he's been doing so far, right? So in a way, right, one could argue that by delivering her, he delivers himself, right? By releasing her, he releases an aspect of himself which was always there, right? But kind of had been unactivated, right? It's like Ruth is activating this deeper part of him, right? So it's interesting, right? What we're learning, one of the things we could be learning here, right, as a man, I suppose, would be that, being open, right, to the woman's desires is a way actually to develop oneself, right? If one is open to the woman in our lives, right? If a man is capable of being open to the woman in his life, this is actually a path towards self-development for the man, right? This ability to be open to your spouse, to be open to your partner, to be open to the woman that is next to you is actually something that will bring a man to higher levels of individuation, of development, and so forth. Are you following what I'm saying? This idea that the ability to be open. Very often what I'm noticing, right, is that in dysfunctional relationships, you have the man, the woman, right? The woman is obviously subservient, but the man usually is functioning alone, right? Not all couples are like this, right? But many couples, the man is doing all the decisions. There is no permeability. What we're seeing here is a man who is strong enough to allow himself to be challenged by the woman. This is what I'm seeing here, right? And remember, the name Boaz means strong, right? We know that already. And we know that he is Ish Chayil, which is a man of virtue, right? Strength also can imply, right? So let me say that again, right? It seems that it takes a strong man, right, to be able to allow himself to be challenged by a strong woman, right? So there's something we're seeing here positive about a strong woman challenging a man. This is a way, and the man who is able to allow himself to be challenged and to be open to her perspective or vision, this can only enhance his own development, right? Very often we don't see this, right? I would say I could go even further and say that a man's true power, right, to use the expression that we saw in Genesis, mashal, right, reign, to reign, right, a man's true reign, oops, Marshall, it changed it again, a man's true power, true reign, right, arises out of the crucible of a relationship with a strong woman, right, there's, yeah, and by the way, I'll give you some examples of that, right, okay, maybe this is not a good example, but I'm hesitating. I'm wondering sometimes if you look at, well, let's do it like that, yes. Take a look at some of the, this is, I'm gonna get into trouble with these examples. Let me give you an example of how this can work out in a good way. So I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Gates, of course, everybody. Bill Gates was just about money for a long time. It was just about, he was a good businessman. He was making money. And we know that he tells a story of how he started his foundation, right? The shift from, acquiring money to giving money. He said was actually his wife. She would, at night she would come and she would be like, honey, it would be nice if we could do this and do that, right? And he eventually, at first he was reticent. It's actually true, right? He was reticent to do this, but eventually he conceded and he started this foundation under the influence, right, of his wife. Now, if we measure his power, right, he's much more powerful now at the head of this foundation than he was just at the head of his corporation. Do you see what I'm saying? So in that sense, right, it takes a strong man to be challenged by a strong woman and then to in fact become even stronger. Are you following what I'm saying? Am I making sense? If the men in the room are uncomfortable, please let me know. Remember, I'm on my own here. I'm speculating. I'm speculating about y'all. Any observation from my males? No, it's good. Okay, all right, all good, very good. Okay, so all right, now let's see what happens to this man who has been awakened, right, and activated. There is such an explosion of rebirth that occurs through this man, right? It's incredible, everything that happens once he rises to his true self, right? I mean, I'm gonna make a list. First of all, we have this interesting, I just wanted to point out, right, that both contain a divine attribute, right? Ruth is given the divine attribute of chesed, which remember meant love, and Boaz, we talked about this, given the divine attribute of, a goel, right, which means redemption, right? So I'm saying divine attributes because these terms, goel, chesed, are usually used to describe God. In our passage, they're given to these two people. So it's as though we have this kind of, Ruth in a way in the highest embodiment of the feminine, Boaz in the highest embodiment of the masculine, right? Ruth containing the divine feminine, Boaz, the divine masculine, united, cosmic renewal, right? When the man and the woman rise to their highest level and unite, you have, right, this is kind of an equation, right? A plus B equals pow, redemption, right? So this is kind of part of the whole theory of the sacred marriage, right? The woman who has reached her highest level of chesed and the man who has reached the highest level of goel, united, it changes the surface of the cosmos, right? There's a cosmic renewal. And so let's look a little bit at what happens when Boaz, right, enters the scene very powerfully. By the way, one of you, I think it was Granick, was wondering when we did Genesis, what does it look like? Mashal, right? We've seen Teshukah, right? Remember these two words? I'm going to mention them, right? Let's review. Teshukah in Genesis 3:16, what meant the desire, right? Loving intention, right? This was ascribed to Eve. And then Mashal, remember, This was a rule, reign, right? Ascribed to Adam, right? So we talked about, so I hope you're seeing in this text, right? Ruth is really embodying this teshukah, this loving intention, right? And now Boaz is awakening, I believe, to his mashal. This is what it looks like when a man is in his mashal, right? Let's take a look at all of the renewals that are taking place. There are 5. Okay, number 1. First of all, he renews Ruth. Let me explain. Well, obviously, but there's something in the name of Ruth, actually, that's interesting. Many people have speculated, what does this name mean? What is it? What's the meaning of the word Ruth? There's several meanings, but there's a consensus that Ruth can come from the verb to saturate. Like when you pour water somewhere in a glass and it goes over the glass, saturate, right? Overflowing, you could say, right? And you have several passages in the Hebrew Bible where that verb is used to talk about the renewal of Israel, which becomes like a watered garden, right? Overflowing garden, right? So explain to me a little bit. It's interesting, right? Why do you think Ruth was named the saturated one, right? Or the overflowing one? I mean, when we meet her, she's the opposite of overflowing. She's barren. She can't have children. She's complete wilderness, right? She's dry in a way. And now look what happens, right? Can anyone give me a little commentary on the name of Ruth and why the author would have picked that name and the role of Boaz in fulfilling, right, the calling that is contained in her name? Anybody want to venture something? Pierre-Antoine, go ahead. Yeah, this is your theory. Go ahead.
That it could probably just be because of like her attributes, as we've been talking about. Like she has like this undying loyalty from like day one. Like she's just like, no, Naomi, I'm not leaving you. Like you're gonna die. I gotta be with you. I gotta protect you. And even when they get to Bethlehem, like she immediately like just goes to the fields to like glean and, you know, get something for them. And it's like she's filling people with like, I don't know, like, okay, she's just filling people, or like she just has this abundance of like good qualities to the point where like, even though she's not beautiful, quote unquote, as like her beauty wasn't mentioned in the book of Ruth, but like the fact that like people just notice her qualities off the bat is what makes her so like fulfilling. Like she just overflows with all of this.
Yes, I love it. You reminded me, I put it in the chat, of a proverb. This is in the book of Proverbs. A woman who refreshes others will herself be refreshed. So she has been saturating other people, right? She's been giving to Naomi, giving to Boaz, right? Chesed. This is saturating with love, with more love than they deserve. And now she herself, right, becomes saturated through the actions of Boaz, right? Boaz now is able to return, to bring herself so that she can experience the experience of saturation, of being overflowing with, right, new life and so forth, right? So we have, again, like you were saying, Pierre-Antoine, this darkness in the beginning and this light at the end, right? There's really a contrast. I like that. Great. So we have this, right? And then we have, of course, the conception, which God himself is involved in. So there's been a number of interpretations of that. We tried it a little bit in class together. One of the interpretations is that God, in a way, had to personally put his seal on the relationship, which was so unorthodox. So some rabbis, some commentators are saying this was a way for God to say, I approve, it's okay. So he kind of went a step further. But here's another interpretation, right? It's, I don't know if you noticed, but God was absent throughout the whole text. How come he appears all of a sudden? This is my question, right? All of a sudden, poof, right? Like how do you call it? Like one of those, you have those boxes and then the thing comes out, the little puppet. It's like that, right? All of a sudden, poof, he comes out. So anybody have any idea why God is completely buried the whole time and all of a sudden he appears? What is the author trying to say here about the way that we could possibly manifest God, right? Anybody have an idea? as though what I'm trying to say is that um, what caused this appearance? What made it? What conditions uh, were created so that God all of a sudden now appears, right? Were there certain conditions that were needed for God to suddenly appear? In other words, what was the role of human beings in this appearance of God? Perhaps I could ask the question like this, right? Was Olivera, go ahead.
I would say there is like a harmony and a balance between the two forces that you mentioned previously, between the man and the woman, and then their different energies. There is a balance right now.
Oh yeah, you're going along with the theory, right, of the sacred marriage as bringing God into the world, right? So yes, because there was this marriage of, where you have this kind of equality, right? Both are strong and equal partners. At that moment, because the balance is reestablished, right? The cosmic balance, this is another messianic moment. God then becomes explicit, right? It's a way, so as though, right, we could argue that the sacred marriage, anytime there is a sacred marriage anywhere where the two partners are equal, you have a powerful manifestation of the divine can occur, right? So yes, that I like that. I think that works with how we've been thinking so far. Another way to see it is that perhaps because we have throughout the book this theme of love, right? And so perhaps when human beings reach that level of love, right, for each other, they manifest God in a powerful way, right? So as though the way that we act can have an effect on how close God is to us or not. How present God is in the world depends on how we act between each other, right? This is a classic idea in Jewish thought. Here's an interesting quote from the rabbis. I'm just going to read it to you. Boaz comforts, will I, this is God talking, right? Boaz comforts, will I not comfort? Boaz did his part, Ruth did her part, Naomi did her part, and the Holy One therefore said, I too will do my part, right? So as though when all human beings are really interacting, right, in love, this is a way to manifest God in a powerful way, in a way that he couldn't be manifested if we were just engaging normally with each other, right? So that's one way to understand that. Okay, so this is the renewal of Ruth, right? That's the first thing that Boaz does, right? Number two, renewal of Naomi. Well, that one is obvious. We see that. Now we have also number three, religious renewal. I want to emphasize this a little bit, right? Boaz, in a way, remember, to marry Ruth, he has to tweak the law. He has to kind of, stretch it, right? So in other words, what we're learning here, right, is that sometimes breaking the law is not breaking the law. Sometimes breaking the law is simply expanding the law. And we have this happening in these texts. Song of Songs, same thing. All the laws are broken, and yet expansion we're going to see, maybe, right? So this is an interesting take, that sometimes the law has to be broken so that it can be expanded, right? This is a very mother's house view, right? The father's house would never say that. It's like, you don't break the law. Here we are realizing that there are moments in life that in order to get to the next level of consciousness, we have to break the existing laws and move further, right? We see this in history all the time. There was a law where women could not vote. We had to break that law to bring in the vote. There was a time where slaves could not vote, right? We had to break the law to bring in that vote. So the law, even in the Bible, right? We are seeing this in the story, even biblical law. There is an awareness even in the Bible that the law should never be set in stone. It should always be flexible enough to meet the needs of the next generation. This is so important. Let me write it in the chat, right? What we're learning here is that the law, even biblical law, right? I can't write biblical. Okay, law is never set in stone, except of course the 10 commandments, I suppose, who are really set in stone. But everything else, right? The law is never set in stone. It should always conserve an amount of flexibility to meet the needs of the next generation. Right, this is what we're seeing here with Boaz, right? The law says clearly no Moabite in Israel, right? Here he is, right, trying to make it push her, right, into stretching the law so that more love can occur, right? So that we can get to a higher degree of love, right? And this is what is always needed. Every generation will break, has a responsibility to break the existing laws in order to love more or love better. I hope you're seeing here the implications of what I'm saying to the whole LGBT debate or women in the priesthood debate, right? There are a lot of debates right now around law, right? And I'm not that I'm going one way or the other, right? I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying, are we having a too rigid concept of the law, which is in a way keeping us from loving the other rather than liberating the other, right? When the law becomes oppressive instead of liberating, it's the day to break it and move into the next level, right? That's what I would suggest, right? Let me say that again, right? When the law becomes oppressive rather than liberating, perhaps an indication, right, that a break is needed. Not to overturn it, but to go more, right? Obviously, Boaz is going way beyond. He's in the next level, right? He breaks the law to get to the next level, not to get to the inferior level, right? This is the. Are you following my whole discussion on breaking the law and the need sometimes to do so in order to grow as human beings, right? We can't allow ourselves to be shut in a narrow space, right? There's always room for growth, and the law is meant to help us grow. When it stops helping us with the growth, we have perhaps a duty to break it and go beyond, right? Which is what Boaz seems to be doing here, which I find interesting, right? So so there's that, right? Religious renewal. Number 4, political renewal. We know that already, right? So thanks to Boaz and Ruth, we have the royal line is able to continue, and we get to the birth of David, of Solomon, right? These are all these amazing kings. And then, yeah, so in a way, so this is an important point. This is interesting. Kestenbaum mentions this. He's like, so if Ruth never converted, how did she end up, right, the ancestor of King David, right, who is kind of a messianic figure? And perhaps, well, let me ask the class, right? What is the text saying? By putting Ruth in the ancestral line of some of the most worthy kings of Israel, what is the text teaching us about royalty, about worthiness, by including this forbidden woman in the genealogy? Anybody want to improvise on an interpretation? That one's easy. Granick, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it could be saying that I guess sometimes to like rule, like I guess a kingdom, but also any type of ruler, I guess, of any whatever size, needs kind of a broader perspective of and sort of like more of a universal scope of looking at things, to be able to take into account all the all the things that need to be taken into account. So yeah, so I guess that's sort of what it's saying, that like if it makes a lot of sense that the king would come from outside of Israel.
Interesting.
Because yeah.
I hadn't seen that, but I like that, right? This idea that to be wise, you have to be able to see beyond your structures, right? And in a way, including this foreign woman is in a way to say King David, King Solomon had a vision which went beyond just the system or beyond the national or the beyond the nation too, right? They had a more universalistic vision, and that type of vision is needed to be able to rule well. I like that. Very good. Let's see. There's another hand. Who might that be? Kestenbaum, go ahead.
I was really going to say the same thing that we see throughout these wisdom texts, because it's human-centered and it's not God-centered. There's an awareness of universality, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in the sense that Ruth may not be a member of the tribe, but at the same time, look at what someone who is not from that tribe is able to produce. So it's creating this sense of worldliness, a sense of universal brotherhood, and saying, yes, even though she's not one of us, nonetheless, we accepted her in, and look at the results.
Yes, excellent, right? It's as though Israel is regenerated by the inclusion of the other, right? Rather than contaminated, right? This is very actual, right? If you look at politics today, the politics of in present day Israel, there is a debate, right? How many non-Jews should we allow within our borders, right? Before they contaminate us completely, right? Before they destroy Jewish identity. Here we have this complete different idea that the other within regenerates, right? So of course we have to be pragmatic. I agree. If there is no more Jews in Israel, it's a problem. But this fear of the contamination of the other, which is present in many nationalistic discourses, not just in the land of Israel. Here we have the same in Europe about refugees, right? We are constantly afraid that the refugee, the immigrant, is going to take away something from our identity, from our values, from our wealth, right? There is constantly this view that the other is contaminating us, right? Here we have a powerful reversal of this view that the other actually, when you include the other, it actually regenerates, right? From within, the whole society is regenerated, right? So this is a very interesting, you can, there are repercussions to this idea, right? Yes, Ahmad, tell us about this agricultural example.
Uh, I just saw an interesting parallel in nature where if you always plant the same crop over and over again in one specific area, it's going to wreak havoc on its ability to yield more crops in the future. So a diversity of crops is actually needed for the soil to, yeah.
Excellent. Right. We have, by the way, Native Americans knew this, right? They would plant the squash, the corn, and the bean together because they kind of helped each other, right? I'm not going to go in details how because I don't know, but I just know that they had this custom of planting them together because there was a synergy when you planted them together. So yeah, so here we have a very powerful, thank you, Ali, Three Sisters Planting, right? We have this completely unusual view of the other, right? Goldstein, go ahead, you raise your hand.
I think also it might be coming to tell us that, so in a lot of other places in the Bible, lineage is very stressed, as in like almost the be all and end all, that if you have a good lineage, you're automatically so much better. So I think that it's kind of coming to tell us that it's not necessarily the case. And really, we all have the power to make ourselves as amazing as we want to or can, and we can do that for ourselves. It also made me think of in Genesis when Isaac and Rivka can't have kids, they both prayed to God, and it said that God answered Isaac's prayers, and the rabbis explained that it's because Isaac came from Abraham, who is a good lineage, and Rivka didn't have as good lineage. I really love
another delightful interpretation, Goldstein.
Rabbis interpreted it. I didn't say
but, you notice everything. Nothing escapes you.
That wasn't me. That was the rabbis. But I do like that this is here and showing us that, you know, it's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes you can also be good without that.
Yes. Here's a beautiful quote from a 16th century rabbi, which goes along with you, Goldstein, for once. I'm going to type it up because this is a very profound quote. He says, I'll read it and then type it up. He says, to be actualized, right, to become real, holiness must be mixed with something that seems forbidden. This is a rabbi talking. The very holiness of something great requires it to contain sin. It's interesting. Let me write this down, just so you guys can ponder this. This is, okay, let me write it down. So this is Al-Sheikh, right? This is a rabbi from the 16th century. To be actualized, holiness must be mixed, speaking of Ruth, right? Must be mixed with something that seems, notice he says seems forbidden, right? There's so many things that are forbidden that seem forbidden but aren't, right? The very holiness of something great, and he means here the birth of David, right? Requires it to contain sin. Just some point to ponder, right? The notion that not being afraid of otherness, of the so-called contamination of the other, right? Yes, the other is different worldview, different attitude, but it is a fecund relationship, right? To be involved with the other. It is only once the pure and the impure are united, right? Quote unquote pure, quote unquote impure, are united, that you have something powerful. I think someone mentioned this with regards to the Hebrews and the Gentiles, right? The nations. Once the Hebrews are united to the nations, maybe in Ruth, one of you said that, you have this powerful redemptive moment, right? I think someone mentioned this, one of you mentioned that the story of Ruth is maybe the story of, who said this? Of the Hebrews united with the nations and the powerful cosmic rebirth that comes out of that. Who was it who said this? No, do you remember yourself? That was great. Yeah, great idea. So yeah, this brings us to the cosmic renewal. That's what I'm going for right now. So this is number 5. Yeah, cosmic renewal, right? So we have this notion that I just mentioned, right? Ruth represents the nations. Boaz represents the Hebrews. Together, it's the perfect. It's like a healing, right? Healing the rift, connecting the brothers, right? We have this, the story of Ruth and Boaz is a kind of, it's a healing text which heals old rifts, old separations, old breaches. For example, Abraham and Lot. Remember, Lot is the ancestor of Ruth. They part ways. Sarah and Hagar part ways, right? Judah and Tamar, conflict, right? Joseph and his brothers part ways. Esau and, oh my God, who's the brother? Jacob part ways, right? You see how we have a history of brothers or wives, right, parting ways, and it's as though, or of, the same and the other parting ways. And here we have a reconciliation of the opposites. Here's a beautiful quote by the Rabbi Nachman of Braslav. This is a 19th century Rabbi Nachman of Braslav. The highest peace, I mentioned this before, is the peace between opposites. This is the messianic peace, right? The messianic era will not come. It's not the rebuilding of the temple. That's not going to bring the Messiah. Messiah will come when the opposites will be united, right? That's what this text is teaching us, right? David, who is a messianic figure, arrives only when Ruth connects with Boaz. So there's one lesson here, right? If we are looking for the messianic era, for the redemption of the world, we have to work to bring opposites together, like is happening in this text. So cosmic redemption, right? You're seeing how Boaz, really what he is a man of peace, right? What is mashal? Mashal is peace, reconciliation, rejuvenation, restoration. This could be ways to understand the role, the highest role of the of mashal, right? Okay, good. Wow, I finished on time. That's amazing. Okay, any questions or comments? We have some time a little bit after if you want. Okay, this brings us to the end of our goddess texts. I hope you enjoyed it. We are now going back to the Father's house, but we're going into the quarrels because Ecclesiastes is a quarrel and the book of John is a quarrel. But we will be going back to more, I'm not going to say more sane texts because they're as insane as this one. But we're going back to, we're going back in the Father's house, but with the marginals of the Father's house. All right, let me give you your test questions. I'm just gonna say them to you right now, and then later I'll put them in the announcements section, okay? So you can pick between these 4 questions. For each question, I want a consistent, very developed answer of a page and a half, single-spaced, okay? So it has to be a pretty long answer, right? It's like an essay. So that's the length, right? I want a page and a half, single-spaced, where you're really, these are questions that are comprehensive questions. They cover everything we've talked about, right? So it's a question where you have to draw on everything. And remember, these questions are simply me gauging how well you take notes. This is not the moment to give new interpretations or think about the question yourself. This is the moment to bring in what we did in class. I'm going to give you a second assignment, which is the essay, where you can be more creative. But this particular assignment, the test, is just your notes, from your notes into the test, right? Are you getting this? Please don't start thinking. No thinking aloud. Just regurgitating what we talked about in class, right? This is the only purpose of this is for me to verify or enforce or ensure that you're taking detailed notes, that you're not missing information, that you're really recording that. Okay, here's your first question. Describe the notion of sacred marriage in the ancient Near East. So describe the notion of sacred marriage in the ancient Near East. And for this, you have to refer to the text on Inanna that we did, right? Because that's where we studied it. And then, how is the story of Ruth a version of that, right? What elements does the story of Ruth share with the concept of sacred marriage in the ancient Near East? Is that first question clear? Put your hand in the screen if you're following me. It's good. Okay. So you could do that, or you could do the other one, number 2. How is Ruth, the book of Ruth, a healing text? How do I put this? Yeah, here, let me put it like this. So the story of Adam and Eve seems to be the story of a, massive failure on the part of the couple, right? Not doing great as a couple. How is the book of Ruth healing? A healing version of the drama that took place in Genesis 1 to 3, right? I'll have to phrase these questions a little better, but I just want you to be able to think about them already, right? We have the drama of Genesis 1 to 3, the drama between the man and the woman, as we explained it in Genesis 1 to 3. How is the book of Ruth, in a way, healing this or reversing it and so forth, right? And I think Alim has been talking about this all the time. He's always mentioning. So I think that's you inspired that question, Alim. Well done. Okay, number 3. How is Ruth the perfect embodiment of the Ezer Kenegdo? Let me write this. Ezer Kenegdo. How is Ruth the perfect embodiment of the Ezer Kenegdo? So you have to draw on Genesis 2 and then look overall what we've been talking about. And number 4. Oh, this is a general question. Contrast the mother's house with the father's house. So remember what I mentioned, right? These are the mother's house are the texts that we're doing. It's a certain path towards spirituality. And then you have the father's house, which is another path. So I'm interested in you contrasting the two, and of course, bringing in the book of Ruth to illustrate the elements of the mother's house. Okay. Thank you, Kestenbaum. I appreciate that. Okay, great. So nice, so nice. Okay, yes, you can just take note of what Kestenbaum wrote. Okay, any questions? You pick one, huh? Not all of them. You just pick one, and then Williams, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I missed the part where it says when it's due.
Not this Saturday, the next one. During spring break. At the end of spring break. Yeah. Now, in addition to this, I want you to write an essay. So this is where I'm going to hear a little bit more of you personally. This is 1.5, also single spaced. And this is your journey. This is what I want it to be. So this is a new assignment, right? I haven't talked about it. I want to hear about your journey, either spiritual, right, or gender journey, right? I don't mean your journey from male to female, right? Although some of you might have to talk about that. But I just mean your journey as a man, your journey as a woman, or your spiritual journey, right? Any journey of these three, right? And you tell me, I want to hear which parts of the course really struck you personally. That's what I want to hear. What were the moments, let me write this down. What were the moments in the lecture, right? That were like a revelation or an epiphany or kind of like a wake-up call or interesting, right? Inspiring. And I want to hear about it. Was there any moment, right, during the lecture where your heart started to burn, right? And you're like, oh, this is interesting. I need to remember this for my own journey, right? Or this is connecting to where I am right now in my spiritual journey, or where I am right now in my journey as a man or a journey as a woman, right? Something personal. Don't give me a summary. I don't need a summary. I know what I said. Give me something personal about how you are reacting to something that was said in class. It doesn't have to be even something that I said. It could be something that someone else said or something that's in the text, right? So any questions? Let me go to Williams and then Wagler. Go ahead.
Oh no, accident. Sorry.
You're good? Okay, Wagler, go ahead. Wagler? Wagler is all...
So there's 2 essays due.
Yeah. Well, one test, one essay.
There's 2 essays due?
Yeah, one test, one
All
essay.
right, okay.
And yes, excellent. So you have, so it's a little bit of work, but you have the whole week of spring break, so you should be okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Cool. All right, guys, I'm going to stop the recording.